The custodian of the two holy mosques, Saudi King Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud, called for a global response to the coronavirus outbreak, telling the leaders of the G20 major economies that they have a pivotal role in countering the pandemic's economic and social impact. In his opening remarks at the virtual meeting of the G20 leaders, King Salman said the impact of this pandemic has spread to reach the global economy, financial markets, trade and global supply chains, hampering growth and development and reversing the gains accomplished in the previous years. He told the leaders that the world counts on them to come together and cooperate in order to face this challenge. Lebanese Prime Minister Hassan Diab's government is marred by disputes and confusion over its inability to develop an integrated plan to stop Lebanon's economic collapse. Finance Minister Ghazi Wazni, with the support of Speaker Nabi Berri, has called for removing from discussion a proposed draft law on capital control and withdrawals and transfers in hard currencies. Another matter of contention is the appointment of new deputies to the central bank governor, as well as the president and members of the Banking Supervision Committee and the government's commissioner at Bank Jaliban. Jamal Omar Ibrahim, Sudan's late Minister of Defense, was considered the Sudanese Treasury of Military Secrets due to his long tenure in the military intelligence apparatus until his appointment as its head in March of 2017. Born in 1960, Ibrahim was named Defense Minister after the armed forces toppled Omar al-Bashir in a palace coup last April, following months of nationwide protests. Before becoming minister, he headed the Security and Defense Committee of the interim government. The Turkish government said it might resort to the highest measure of adopting a complete curfew if coronavirus infections continue to spread. A partial curfew for senior citizens older than 65 was announced in the country over the weekend. However, it doesn't restrict the general public. A total of 59 people have died because of the virus in Turkey after cases surged in 2 weeks to 2,433. The Turkish Central Bank has stepped in to rescue the lira from a new collapse following sharp drops in the past 2 weeks. The central bank said on Tuesday it was opening a 90-day repo auction with a volume of 15 billion liras and an interest rate of 8.25%, 150 basis points below its policy rate. The repo was in addition to its regular one-week repo with a rate of 9.75%. The currency has shed as much as 10% so far this year. The central bank's move attempts to support the lira and enable the Turkish economy to deal with the consequences of the COVID-19 outbreak. Tunisia's former president of the Constituent Assembly, Mustafa bin Jafar, argued that transferring legislative powers temporarily to Prime Minister Ilyas al-Fakhfakh, according to Chapter 70 of the Constitution, is a legal political measure imposed by the exceptional stage that the country and the world are going through. Bin Jafar said that the step was equal to President Qais Said's usage of Chapter 80, which considers the country in a dangerous state that requires exceptional measures. The Sudanese people are increasingly concerned with the spread of the new coronavirus, especially after a third person tested positive on the past 24 hours. Many COVID-19 social awareness campaigns have been launched in the country. Isra Adam Ahmed, the head of Builders Without Borders, a volunteer-based community service, pointed out that a greater burden falls on social workers to help in raising awareness to prevent matters from getting worse, as the country already has a weak healthcare system. Two rockets hit Iraqi capital's high-security green zone hours before US-led forces were said to pour out of a second base in the country. The two projectiles struck near the Baghdad Operations Command, which coordinates Iraq's police and military forces. The command center is a few hundred meters away from the US Embassy, which is a regular target of rocket attacks. However, an Iraqi security official who spoke on condition of anonymity said there were no casualties reported. Palestinians reported their first death from the coronavirus, a woman in her 60s who lived in the Israeli-occupied West Bank. The woman had experienced symptoms and was later hospitalized before succumbing to the illness. The woman was from Bidu, a Palestinian village north of Jerusalem and southwest of Ramallah. An Algerian appeals court has upheld sentences of over 10 years in prison for two former prime ministers under ex-president Abdelaziz Bouteflika following an unprecedented corruption trial, a judicial source said Wednesday. The Algiers court sentenced Ahmed Ouyahia and Abdulmalik Silal to 15 and 12 years of jail time respectively, confirming a ruling by a lower court on December 10th of last year. The two premiers had served under Bouteflika, who was forced to resign in April last year by enormous street protests against his bid for a fifth term in office. The Volcano of Rage operation led by the Presidential Council of the Government of National Accord, or the GNA, has claimed seizing Al Watia Air Base, but the Libyan National Army, or the LNA, was quick to announce that it has foiled the assault. Despite agreeing on a humanitarian truce to combat the COVID-19 outbreak, fierce clashes took place Wednesday between the LNA of Field Marshal Khalifa Haftar and forces loyal to Faiz Sarraj's GNA. During a press conference, the LNA spokesman Ahmed El-Mismari slammed Turkey's failed attempt to occupy Libya. Damascus announced a partial curfew to stem the spread of the new coronavirus as the country registered 3 new cases of Syrians coming from Iran. The Syrian Ministry of Health said the 3 new cases tested positive for the virus. All of them belong to the same group that was placed under quarantine in Damascus of last week. More than 100 people were placed under quarantine in Hajar area after returning from Tehran. A former FBI agent who mysteriously vanished in March of 2007 died in Iranian custody, his family concluded, saying US intelligence had made them give up 13 years of hope. President Donald Trump did not confirm Bob Levinson's death, saying that Iran had not communicated any news on the former agent, who would have turned 72 this month. But Levinson's family said that it had learned that he was dead, although it gave no information on how or when. A fire which broke out at a unit of Iran's Abadan Petrochemicals company has been brought under control. The blaze was caused by a pipe that burst at a unit of a plant located near the major Abadan refinery in southwestern Iran. It said no one was hurt. The state news agency, the RINA, said the fire was minor and was brought under control after an hour. Iran may face a second outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic as the country banned internal travel and gatherings. President Hassan Rouhani has banned any new trips between cities, and violators will be confronted legally. The escalating outbreak in Iran has killed 2,077 people so far, with 143 deaths recorded in the past 24 hours.